What is going on, guys? This call sign war just did a radio check. We're going to talk about this here in just a second. Some very, very, very creepy stuff here. If it means anything, again, this is military to military, but check it out. Listen to this. This is creepy. Whiskey Alpha Romeo war. We'll talk about this and everything else that people are talking about tonight. First off, NK displays enough ICBMs to overwhelm the U.S. defense system against them. This is pretty wild. It says that North Korea has just revealed a large enough number of missiles to conceivably overwhelm the United States defense against them, blowing a hole in decades of denuclearization and homeland security policies. Image from state-run media show North Korea's military rolling 10 to 12 Hwasong-17 intercontinental ballistic missiles down the streets of Pyongyang during a Wednesday night parade. The U.S. only has 44 ground-based interceptors to launch from Alaska and California to destroy an oncoming ICBM in flight. Assuming that North Korea's weapons can fit our four warheads atop of them, it's possible that Pyongyang could fire more warheads at the U.S. than America has intercepts. I'm surprised this is even an issue now. You would think that Russia, all they would have to do is essentially outnumber our defenses and then it's done. I guess that's already been the case. There is a lot of really, really odd events happening right now as we speak. We're going to talk about that and everything else that's going on tonight's show. So stick around. This is going to be a wild one. Like I said earlier, it's going to be good. So stick around. We'll be right back. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Today, we're going to go over a whole lot of stuff, so stick around. It's going to be a good one. If you're new here, remember you can always go over to marfooglenews.com and find every single article, tweet, video, picture, document for the show. Now, when you go there, you'll see it's very easy to navigate. You will just look for today's thumbnail. Get your ducks in a row. Lasers scanning our bases. Signs we are close. Once you click on that, it will bring you to every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we're going to mention here. You can also grab a second device and actually follow along. So if we only hit the headline, especially at the very end, if we start running out of time, you can read the rest of the article right here. It's a very, very awesome resource to use, and it's all archived, so you can actually search all of our previous shows to see if we've covered a subject. If you say, what about a pole shift or Bigfoot? If you look in that upper right-hand corner, there's probably a show we have done something on it. Let's also talk about marfooglenews.com/friends real quick, just to remind you, all of the mods, again, are voluntarily keeping it a peaceful place, and a lot of the times they miss parts of the show because they're just trying to keep everything peaceful down there, so make sure to thank them by going and giving them a subscribe. All of the great mods that end up showing today have great either channels, artists, they are authors, all sorts of great stuff, so make sure to go to marfooglenews.com/friends. Let's bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I am doing just fine.
So we have a lot to talk about. We'll go over the radio checks, kind of creepy call sign there, war. And it's basically the call sign and the radio check was, "This is war." So again, hopefully it's just his name is war. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about how hovercrafts popped up, I believe, on Myrtle Beach to get groceries. Military Navy just pulling up on a beach. We'll show you that at the very end as well. But first, Rolls-Royce nuclear car will take drivers to Mars and the moon thanks to new micro-reactor engine full of uranium. Dex, do you want to cover this? This is kind of crazy to think about, a nuclear car.
Well, most people think of Rolls-Royce as a car, and I'm sure that's what they're, trying to relate here. But they actually make a huge living selling and building airplane engines. They've been making these jet engines for a long time, so it's not out of the norm or out of the fathom of possibility to think that they're going to make an engine that would be used in space travel. And that's exactly what they're looking at is, creating a micro reactor that can be used in extreme conditions of space travel. And so this is basically using trace amounts of uranium, and it'll power a spaceship basically using the same technology that we would use in, say, a nuclear plant. So we've talked about these different nuclear engines, and how they think that that's going to be one of the keys to getting to Mars. But specifically, this is one company that apparently is investing in it, and that's Rolls-Royce.
Well, it seems that all of the richest and most elite are investing in getting off the planet rather than fixing it if it's broken. Pretty crazy stuff. And then we have even the Pentagon is using ChatGPT now. It says the Pentagon used ChatGPT to write a press release about new counter-drone task force. ChatGPT, OpenAI's convincing machine learning-powered chatbot, is absolutely everywhere lately. Even the U.S. Army is using it. Motherboard has found. It says that the Pentagon used OpenAI's ChatGPT to write an article on February 8th about the launch of a new counter-drone task force. The article flagged that it had been written by AI at the top. So first of all, with ChatGPT, if you haven't discovered already, they did program certain, parameters into it, and it seems like it is a bias thing. Now, the more that this is used by absolutely everything, there are some pretty alarming things. And just some house cleaning. I did tweet a video that it turns out it convinced me. It is so dang close to the reality. But I actually tweeted out a video of something that somebody made of. It was a discussion on a video game from 20 years ago, Metal Gear Solid 2. But they essentially put this message in there stating, it had Snake, the main protagonist, and then the bad guy. I think it was Mr. Big Boss or something like that. But they're talking about this AI and how it's progressed. And at one point, we won't know who we are talking with online. We won't know if it's a computer or AI or if it's somebody else. Now, one thing that this video pointed out was a very scary thing. The government, of course, the world's governments, when it gets to the point where this is you're able to download an app and take somebody's voice, basically be them or make a fake them and be able to talk to people as them and in real time type in what you wanted to say, at that point, we really won't know who is on the other end. Therefore, it seems like the next logical step is that there will be misinformation, there'll be fake videos of real people that are obviously going to convince the gullible. These fake videos of real people saying things are then going to be a huge problem. And of course, all they have to do is basically do a deep fake and an artificial AI of a politician saying something scary, scare a bunch of people, and then all of a sudden you have a problem that needs to be fixed. What it suggested in this video was that the solution to that is to have every single human on the internet have an identifier, something that is attached to every single human on the internet, and it goes all the way back to basically having a digital identity. And as much as this sounds like something out of sci-fi, it's actually something that looks like it's on its way. If you look at what they are doing and all of the different credits that they're talking about using in the future to keep everything healthy, it's pretty scary. As far as the government using ChatGPT, this thing is just blowing up like crazy, and it's not a phase. This isn't something that's going to go away. Somebody, when I posted the ChatGPT thing, somebody said, oh, gosh, this is, they're on the doom train or something. This is extremely scary, and people do not realize this. If they don't realize that the thing itself could be scary, think about the reaction to when this is really utilized everywhere. You will not be able to realize if a creator that you're watching is either human or indistinguishable from AI. They can literally create a video person and then attach a fake voice, and you're talking about, anybody could be fake in like a year from now. This is absolutely terrifying. It says the article that follows was generated by this, and it shows, and you guys can go and read this, but this is the U.S. government using ChatGPT. Dex, for the AI to generate the stories is kind of alarming that they're doing that. Why would they do that anyways?
Well, it's no different than we've seen with other writers and news outlets using it to formulate the paragraphs, formulate the context that goes in there. It may not have the facts, like you typically would give it the facts, and then ask it to write around those facts for you. So it fills in the fluff, so to speak. And you can give it a lot of direction. You don't have to just give it a one line, like write me an article about this one topic, and then it'll do that, but it's not that good. You would then go in and say, this is what I want to talk about. I want you to explain this, explain that, explain this. This is what happened. Here are the facts, here are the times, et cetera, et cetera. You put all that together, and then it creates a piece of content. And what we've typically seen with people that are doing content creation is they'll take that as a first draft, and then they'll edit it from there. But the point is, everyone's doing this, and this is the fact that the DoD is using it to create articles that they have to write. It's a time saver, and B, it's a pretty handy tool because it does create pretty grammatically correct information. It's just you got to make sure the information it's creating is correct. That's the big challenge right now.
And what's funny is, as you're talking about it, the internet caught up with you, and it was like, and it made you all digitalized. So yeah, Dex is a real person. Let's see here.
I am AI.
Yeah. So by the way, somebody said, what was it? Somebody said, geez, I just missed it. Dang it. Dan broke AI. Unseen Apex is here. We got B Borrowed. Carmine Petrakis says, get well. Ilea, yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of people are sick. Ilea's whole family was sick over the last couple of weeks. Same with mine. I was the last one to get it, and mine didn't get as bad as everybody else. Let's see here. Gosh, that was a good comment. Somebody said, am I shadow banned? James Dunn, no, you're not shadow banned. And again, when there's 4,000 people in the chat, you may say something, and if nobody responds, people think they're shadow banned, but you're not shadow banned, and everyone saw that comment. So, yeah, sometimes if you go off topic or something, you might not get a response, but everybody can see you. Let's see here. Chat GPT is the future of insanity. Put your faith in Jesus and his finished work on the cross to be saved from your sins. The world is running out of time. What was that? Smelly Dog? I just watched a documentary last night, The Harbinger. Have you guys seen that? It's James Caan. I actually talked to Jacob Israel earlier tonight, and apparently back in the day, he actually met James Caan. Says that in real life, the guy is a good guy, at least for what he can tell. But it was pretty interesting as far as the connections he made with 2001 as September, and how we were attacked at the gateway of America. Showed all of these kind of signs that biblically we are in end times, all the way back to 2001. But I didn't agree with kind of the ending, basically saying that CV was the saver. Like if we have a horrible disaster, it extends our time, kind of. You'll have to watch it to see what I mean, but I don't want to spoil anything, but I thought it was going to be way different than what it was. And then the strongest possible do not travel warning for Mexico issued to spring breakers. They're basically saying it's not safe to go there. It says, is it safe to visit Mexico for spring break? State Department issues strongest possible do not travel warning due to the threats of crime and kidnapping. As former U.S. Marshal claims, cartels are infiltrating once safe resorts. So think about this. You're going to somewhere where you think is a tourist trap and completely safe and a 5-star hotel. Well, apparently the cartels are going into those and snatching people up. That's pretty freaky. Of course, you've got the son of El Chapo stuff that we've covered over the last couple months, but this is just nuts. It says, just as Americans begin to pack their bags and catch flights to hit the beaches and bars for spring break, the U.S. government is cautioning all those headed to Mexico to stay out of 6 dangerous states. It says the State Department has issued the highest tier warning for some parts of America's neighbor to the south that are run by drug cartels and pose potential threats to American tourists. The do not travel warning has been issued across 6 Mexican states due to crime and kidnapping. Now, these areas include Guerrero, Colima, Michoacan, Sinaloa, Tamaulipas, and Zacatecas. So I actually could see 3 of those, are already kind of crazy, especially Sinaloa, considering that's, the Sinaloa cartel. But it says Robert Almonte, a former U.S. Marshal in the Western District of Texas, told News Nation that there is a cartel presence in these resorts, some of which have long been considered safe. So they're saying even the fanciest resorts, you might get kidnapped. Do you guys believe this? Do you or not? Most people aren't questioning this one. Are you going to Mexico soon? Do you plan on staying in anywhere of those places? Or have you canceled your trip because of this new do not travel? I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. Again, thank you guys for making it. Yeah, so, and I know there's lots of questions too. We'll cover that. We'll cover the EAM message. A lot of folks here have said, the EM messages aren't so much to worry about. It wasn't it wasn't a Sky King, but it is a military member to another military member saying, this is war, or this is Whiskey Alpha Romeo. Kind of creepy. We'll talk about that here in a minute. And then let's see here. I do want to make sure that I catch up with this. D-Live, thank you guys over on D-Live. West of the West received a subscription from Beer Juice. Thank you for gifting West of the West a Mafia badge. Thanks, Beer Juice. Scooby-Doo right, Phil Billy. We have, of course, Kimbria says, good evening, fam. Well, thank you for the diamond. And, of course, Chance Paladin and Jammer, thank you for modding over there. Appreciate it. Ellie Barker says, just got back from a Mexico trip. Never felt like any danger. Well, it would be in those 6 states, but again, in the fanciest resort, they sneak in, they sneak out. So you wouldn't know if there's cartel around you. From my time in Mexico, in Bucerias and Sayulita, and even Puerto Vallarta, there was cartel there, but you never know it. They don't wear shirts that say cartel, but you definitely know of their presence when you see the little towns are guarded by, dudes with M16s. Pretty freaky stuff there. Are you going to Mexico? Let me know in the comments down below. And then cold, hunger, despair grip homeless as Turkey-Syria earthquake toll passes 19,000. Remember when it was like 900 and then it went up to 3,800? Now they're saying that it is as high as 19,000. Dex, that's more than the Japan death toll, I believe. Can you believe? Is this real? Like 19,000?
I think it's over 20 now, to be honest, since this article was printed.
Can you look up what the Japan tsunami and earthquake, what the death toll for that was? I believe that was around 15,000. So this was something that is unusually high number of people gone. It says the death toll reaches 16,546 in Turkey, over 3,000, hundreds of thousands left homeless in the middle of winter, and now they're saying over 20,000 in general from this massive, massive earthquake. This is giant. What was it, a 7.8, I believe? And it goes up exponentially every single point. That's nuts. So praying for the people in Turkey. Go ahead, Dex.
It was between 15 and 16,000.
You have to be kidding. So, by the way, you went roboto, so hopefully you'll be unroboto by the next one. But so check this out. With Japan's death toll being 15,000, everybody remembers the video of how horrid that is. And they had very little warning. I mean, they had no warning before the earthquake hit. But of course, that was one of the most prepared places in the world for an earthquake. to see this on a 7.8. Japan's earthquake was a 9.0. And not to mention the following tsunami, less people perished in Japan than this Turkey earthquake. So it shows you if your buildings are built to a certain standard, it definitely makes a huge difference. This is why when they estimate that Seattle, the death toll in the Cascadia will be 15,000, I think they're smoking crack, to be honest, because as many unretrofitted buildings there are, and brick buildings and things like this just in Seattle, I can't imagine what a 9.0 earthquake will do. Go ahead, Dex.
Well, I was going to add, keep in mind with Japan, it was not only an earthquake, a 9.0, which is significant, it was also the tsunami. And I imagine a lot of people perished from the tsunami, as you said, because they're more prepared for the quake. So, this toll that's happening in Turkey and its neighboring country there is huge, and I imagine it's going to keep getting bigger. There's so much they have to go through. There's so much debris, so much rubble, so many collapsed buildings that I don't think they're getting. They're at the point now where they're questioning if they're going to be able to find any more survivors, because you're getting further along in that time frame when you can actually find survivors. So it's getting despairing for many, and it's also getting cold for many that are now displaced and don't have homes.
One of my worst, so everybody has like the way that they don't want to go out. Drowning is a horrible way to go. Some say it's actually a good way to go, because after you inhale the water, it's just like you fade out. But that is my nightmare, because I actually fell off without a life jacket a couple miles out from the coast on one of those stand-up jet skis, the ones that you can't sit on, but you have to like stand up. I fell off one of those, and I never rode one before, and it went in circles, which I didn't know it did that either. But I almost drowned because on the third pass, I barely grabbed it, and I cramped up, and I was miles out without a lifesaver. And I literally, I shouldn't be here today, because that was super lucky. I used the last of my strength. If you've ever almost drowned, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Your whole body is just out of energy after waiting and freaking out and panicking. That's one of my top ones, but even more than that is being trapped in rubble. I think that would be the most horrific way to go, being stuck under rubble, being somewhere where you're trapped, that or in a submarine. I can only imagine what the Pearl Harbor guys, those soldiers that were in those ships, trapped in a pocket of air in the bottom of that ship, just, and being able to hear people but not get out. I mean, it was just... that's horrific. That should be on most people's, top tier, not a way to go. Go ahead, Dex.
Did you see there was one headline a day or two ago about a mother who gave birth in the rubble and the child was saved? I assume she was too, but yeah, you're in the rubble and you give birth.
Yeah, it says the rescue of a 2-year-old boy after 79 hours trapped in the rubble of a collapsed building in Hatay, Turkey. Several other people raised spirits among weary search crews. So that's one of those miracle stories where, somebody had a hand in that up above. And then Iran shows off new deadly missile with "Test Israel" written on it. One thing I want to point out in the big picture of all of this is look at how the North is telling their people to go to prepare for war. Iran and Israel, you have, of course, folks in India saying that, India and their dispute is getting hotter as well. You have all of these different flashpoints, and all of them are heating up at the same time. That's what's pretty alarming to me. And then China and Taiwan, Russia and UKR. It says that Iran sent a stark message to Israel in an arms exhibit Wednesday by displaying a missile that had "to Israel" written on the side, first reported by the Jerusalem Post. It says the missile was just one in a display of arms and military equipment the Islamic Revolution Guards Aerospace Force presented at a public event in the central city of Isfahan, roughly 270 miles south of Tehran. So, pretty freaky there. You can see it says a long-range Gadar missile is pictured, defense exhibition. And then it says, it is unclear what the military factory was producing, but Iran was quick to blame Israel for the attack. Of course, speaking about that previous hit. So there's tit for tats going on. We covered that they have the supposed underground base that can even send out fighter jets and things like this. So they're supposedly preparing for some sort of conflict where everything on the ground level will be knocked out, so they'll still be able to fight. Dex, with Is and Iran, this is a flashpoint that is, everybody thinks every one of these is a distraction. If you look, even like I've said, even if 2% of this stuff is true, then we're in a lot of trouble.
Well, let's face it. When we look at people like I ran to the store, NK, any of these other, even G for that matter, but I wouldn't necessarily put them in the same camp because he's much bigger. Their military capabilities have been growing so much, and it's not necessarily that they have the greatest brand new tech, but they're getting to a point where you can't ignore them. You can't treat them like the fly you just swat with the fly swatter. Having that underground base and those pictures that were, if you guys didn't see it last night, go back to last night's show, even just go to the article on our website. Like, it's an underground base where they can literally fly out of this, hole in the side of a mountain. They show the pictures of the planes. They're right there. I mean, the advancements that they're getting, whether it be that, or in this case, poning up more missiles, or as we talked about, NK having more missiles than we actually have the ability to defend against on the West Coast. I mean, all of these are big steps for these little countries, and it's really putting them in a position. I'm sure it's making their heads rather large, and making them feel like they've got more power against their adversaries. And it wouldn't be a problem if these were all peaceful nations in the sense that everyone got along, but they don't. They have adversaries, and in this case, Is and I go back and forth, and we're allied with one side of that, just like we're allied with SK against NK, just like we're allied with Taiwan against G. So there's sides everywhere, and it's very alarming when you see the rapid pace of the growth of these militaries and their technology that they've got, because it's not that far off from them actually using it. You don't just build it to let it collect dust. So
yeah, the rapid expansion is really alarming. And this whole underground base was rumored, and they talked about it. People laughed at it. Now that they've released all of the photos and all of the video of this actual place existing, they have huge stores of everything. They're building up to destroy Iran. I mean, this goes back. This is in their culture. I mean, they absolutely want to destroy the opposite. So pretty freaky. And again, we support Israel. There's people debate on which side to support. Either way, the country I live in supports this side. And if the other guys support this side, we're going to have problems. This could cause a world war. Hopefully that never happens. So actually, so there's some comments here. PJ Warden says, I wonder what the folks that called us crazy fearmongers say about us now. Thanks, Marf, Dex, Ilea, for all you do. John 3:16 is the key. Psalms 37. PJ Warden, they still call us fearmongers. People to this day, they just keep pushing against it. They call this stuff fear-mongering. People say they're all on the doom train. I still don't understand this. People are searching us out. This is what we are passionate about. And unfortunately, we've been right. And by we, I mean the community. All of you guys have guessed this stuff before it's happened because it's super obvious. It's right out in the open. Unfortunately, there's so much information this way or that way. It's really unfortunate that people are still calling this doom. None of us are afraid. This is a prepper niche. We're prepping for these events, and we feel so much better. Personally, every time that I get something else that kind of fills a gap in my prep, it makes me feel more comfortable than anything else. Yes, you could just totally not focus on it, but when your belief is, and everybody, preaches that we should all be able to believe what we should believe in. You can believe what you believe, and I believe in. We're all equals, but yet this is doom mongering or fear mongering. I don't understand that. If you don't believe it, don't watch it. If you don't like scary movies, don't watch scary movies, like I've said. But at the same time, they go out of their way to tell us that we're crazy. I think that psychologically is like a fear of what we're saying. They don't like it. It makes them feel anxious and panicked. And what that turns into is anger towards this. You guys all have friends and family members that they don't like you because of it. It's our belief. It's not, it's something that you can't change. If I wasn't doing YouTube, I would be keeping up with all the same stuff. That's what I have done since 2001. Realistically, 2003, when I first got the homemade disc of a grassroots campaign to hand out AJ's documentary about 2001. And this is what I've been looking at this whole time. And you could see all of this stuff happening. Once you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. Unfortunately, I can't push snooze and just keep swiping on social media. Every time I do, 10 seconds later, I'm like thinking, okay, what's going on? I can't not. It's just like anything else. Kay Holmes says, crazy world we live in, get ready. Yeah, absolutely. And Kay Holmes, thank you for stopping by. Thank you. Craig Alicious says, had Air Force cargo planes in formation circling town yesterday. Never seen one here before. And this is in a country town in Australia. So Craig Alicious, you're saying in Australia, again, you had cargo military planes circling town in formation. That's freaky. Andreas Binder, thank you so much. GG, hey, well, thank you as well, and thank you. Good to see you. Felix, thank you again for your support last night. I think I missed you. I wonder if that is a certain Felix. I know somebody watches our show, but doesn't want his official channel on there. And then Carol McLean, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Olga Turan, thank you so much. I appreciate your support, Olga. Severin Shot, thank you for the super sticker. Amex Katsuni says, yo, first time in live. One love from Sacktown. Hey, nice to see you from Sacramento. That's awesome. And then Greg Davis, keep an eye out for another earthquake in Turkey in the next few days. There is some data out there that is pointing out to this scenario. Greg Davis, I hope that doesn't happen, especially for the innocent folks there. And anytime an earthquake happens, I mean, it's not like they get to pick and choose the victims of it. That's really sad. Zen1AZ, thank you so much for your support. And Zen1, thank you for stopping in almost every show. I don't think you've missed one lately. So yeah, this is that picture that we were talking about of that underground base. Very creepy. And then before we talk about North Korea's antique fighter jets are still keeping the U.S. and South Korea on their toes, I do want to remind you guys, if you haven't already, we have told you about the risks of an EMP and a CME. A CME is not an if, it's a when. This is a device that can actually protect you against both of those threats, or at least it can protect your cars, your trucks, your vehicles, of course, your ATVs, your motorcycles, your boats, and even your generators, whether it be gas or electric or solar. You can actually get one for a Flex 1500. They make a specific one. In fact, the Flex 1500 is the only solar generator that you can have protected by an EMP shield. You can go over to marfugglenews.com/EMP. What this will do is it grounds the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry your device. Again, this is marfugglenews.com/EMP. It's about 15 minutes to put this on your car so that your car gets home from work to bug in, or so your car or truck gets out to bug out. Also, you can wire one of these into your home if you do plan on bugging in. Once this is wired in by an electrician, it will actually protect everything in your house within 250 linear feet, which covers most size houses. That means your fridges, your devices, everything that's plugged in will be protected against that. This also protects you against other surges like lightning strikes. Again, the lightning strike even has a guarantee to it. So go to marfugglenews.com/EMP to get $50 off and to help our independent channel. When we do affiliates like this keeps us independent. This keeps us entirely viewer funded. So thank you guys. I appreciate you. We don't have a multi-channel network. We have the Mafia. So thank you guys for supporting us. This is a way you do it, and where you're not just giving us something, you're actually getting something you can keep and might even save your life at the same time as supporting our small channel. And then Dex, why don't you talk about North Korea's antique fighter jets?
Given the fact that they have these heavy sanctions on them to try to prevent them from creating nukes, they haven't really had much of an opportunity to invest in jet technology. They've been basically living with what they were able to put together and build from what the Soviets gave them back in the 80s and 90s. So these antiques, almost, if you want to call them that, are still in use. But what's amazing is that they're still causing scrambles on the SK side. So they gave a couple of examples, like on October 6th, they had 12 of them that were practicing air to ground attacks near the DMZ that caused SK to have to scramble. November 4th, they had another 80 fighters. SK scrambled 80 to 180 NK planes that were detected in their radar area. And so it's just this, and it also happened again, I think, well, December 26th was the drones. But this, I guess the point being that they don't have a very modern Air Force. It's extremely old. You can look at some of the pictures that are in here. You can see the types of planes we're talking about. These are like old, cold conflict days jets, but they're still using them, and they're still causing, a lot of havoc, at least with, the kind of like we see Xi doing with Taiwan, where he's constantly doing stuff to provoke and to, cause SK, and specifically SK, to have to, scramble or react or respond. So this ongoing, it's an ongoing effort on their part from multi facets, whether it be jets or lobbing, small artillery shells or launching large rockets and sending them over other countries. They just keep doing it all to the annoyance and to the, I guess, the security of everyone around them.
I also want to point out that, we have actually done some things as far as like they've been revamping some of the older planes, because if an EMP or something did happen, some of the older equipment would actually be better to fight some of the older equipment. Dex, do you remember when we covered about how they wanted to revamp some of the older stuff because it was less affected by electronic warfare? And in fact, in the ocean, there was some stuff too. The Navy was trying to, because we have advanced to a certain point, that our enemies would actually use some old school stuff, and the new school stuff didn't detect the old school stuff. Do you remember that? I'm trying to remember the exact context.
I recall. I recall that they were talking about bringing back some of the boneyard and bringing them back to life, so if they needed them, they could have them as a backup.
It makes you wonder with NK having supply of these things, right? And then when they did that sort of 180 planes, you can imagine that's a if you looked up at the sky, that's like something out of a movie. 180 planes is like the scenes out of World War II. So they're old. Funny, they scrambled 80 for 180. Looks, obviously one of the new advanced jets could probably take 10 of those out in 10 minutes, but depends on what they're going to do with them. And then Chinese balloon had tools to collect communication signal, or at least that's what they're picking up. I don't know if I'm picking up what they're throwing down, but it says the Chinese spy balloon shot down by the U.S. military over the Atlantic Ocean was capable of collecting communication signal and was part of a fleet of surveillance balloon directed by the Chinese military that had flown over more than 40 countries across 5 continents. It says that the United States used high-resolution imagery from the U-2 flybys to determine the balloon's capabilities. The department said in a written announcement, adding that the balloon's equipment was, quote, clearly for intelligence surveillance and inconsistent with the equipment on board weather balloons. It said that the agency said that the balloon had multiple antennas in an array that was likely capable of collecting and geolocating communications. It said solar panels on the machine were large enough to produce power to operate multiple active intelligence collection sensors. Okay, so more and more, I'm thinking about those mysterious antennas popped up, and they said were for crypto. I mean, come on. This is just a few weeks before this. There was mysterious antennas popping up all over the countryside, and then you've got these balloons flying over. Were they communicating with these things? Were they communicating with antennas that we didn't even see, that they didn't catch? They were out in the middle of nowhere with solar panels and erected, and then you have this thing happen just a couple weeks later. I mean, what the heck is going on here? Not to mention, go ahead, Dex.
Oh, I was gonna mention the fact that we actually speculated. We didn't have any proof of this, but it was our educated guess that they actually used the U-2 planes to spy, if you want to call it that, or to look as close as they could, because of the capabilities of the U-2, not only in height, but in camera technology, to be able to look at this thing while it was coming in. We had said that, so now they're confirming that's exactly what had happened, because we had suggested and said that's probably what they're doing, is they're looking at them with a U-2 and they're flying an F-22 up there, because there's the only two things that would really get to that level when it was first spotted, or at least first talked about publicly, at over 65,000 feet in Montana.
Yep, at that altitude, there was only a couple ways. I forgot about that. Yeah, it was specifically talked about not only in the chat but on the show. So I just wonder, what did they really find on this thing? Speaking of which, we have a piece here. Let's see if I.
Well, and while you're doing that, Adam, one more thing. If they saw that it was radio equipment, and then they said, well, we can just let it go because we'll shoot it down over the water, it doesn't pose a threat. Maybe they didn't know it was radio equipment. Maybe they thought it was cameras. But my point, I guess the point I'm making, is the whole time it was up there, it's listening to all sorts of data that it can get from our communications. It's listening to how we respond. It's listening to how our jets talk to even respond to the plane or to the balloon. It's got all of that. It can triangulate all that. It could, fix locations and track where the signals were coming from. And presumably, it probably sent all that data back in real time, so it wasn't necessarily lost when it was shot down. So the fact that we just said, we can throw some blankets over our sensitive equipment, put everything underground, we don't care if it flies over, in reality, the whole time it's actually doing what it set out to do, and we allowed it. We didn't shoot it down to begin with.
Yep, and whatever mission it was supposed to do, it could have done. And somebody on the inside could have purposely had them turn a blind eye or say, oh, maybe we shouldn't until it's over the ocean, or we don't know. But while this was all going down, and we have some Dropbox photos and video here of this hovercraft, this huge, what are they called? NMAC, or is it LMAC? Is that what they're called? These things are massive. They're straight out of a Jackie Chan movie.
This is LCAC.
LCAC. And you just went roboto. Sorry about that. And then the LCAC pulled up on Myrtle Beach, and for what they say was that they went and got groceries. It said the U.S. Navy confirmed Thursday that recovery efforts are still underway off the coast of South Carolina 5 days after the military shot down the Chinese spy balloon. Officials released new information after photos and videos showed a Navy vessel landing on the sand in Cherry Grove Beach area of North Myrtle Beach Thursday morning. A U.S. Navy representative told WYEF that the vessel is working with the USS Carter Hall in recovery efforts after Saturday's downing of the Chinese spy balloon. Says Lieutenant Commander Lisa Doherty said that the landing craft Air Cushion is a hovercraft used by the Navy to transport cargo from the ship to shore and is designed to come ashore on the beach. She said that the vessel coming ashore Thursday morning was planned and would return to the ship once it was loaded with supplies. It said the incident was captured by multiple people on shore, including Calvin Holbrook. It said it happened about 8 a.m., said the couple, who had gone to the beach for a couple of days just to get out of the house. We heard a noise like a plane or a big something. Then we went out to our balcony, and it just came in and went straight up on the beach. We couldn't believe it. Said that they had watched the vessel from the last couple days as it was anchored in the ocean on the horizon, assuming it was taking part of the collection of debris. They said by the time they got down to the beach, police were already putting up yellow tape to keep the crowd and onlookers that had gathered away from the vessel. So yeah, this thing landing on there. Some people said that they basically people got out and they loaded up with supplies and then they bounced. Go ahead, Dex.
There's one of the photos I think you have is a soldier carrying a grocery bag, and I guess locals recognize that grocery store. So that was what I saw in one of the from one of the locals. They said, "Yeah, that's the so and so store here that we all shop at." So it's like literally they pulled up on the beach, went to the grocery store, grabbed some stuff, jumped back in the hovercraft, and took off. And while everyone's standing around, I mean, you're at the beach enjoying your day, and a hovercraft pulls up. Kind of a crazy sight.
As you can see, it would be pretty recognizable, right? It's a red dotted bag. Get some stuff and then hop back on. And then as far as the U.S. House is voting to condemn China over the balloon surveillance, the House voted unanimously Thursday to condemn China's balloon surveillance program as, quote, a brazen violation of U.S. sovereignty, a rare and swift bipartisan rebuke of Beijing as questions mount about the craft the U.S. says was part of a vast aerial spy program. The 419-0 action came as lawmakers clamoring for information about the balloon that flew across American skies were being briefed by U.S. officials in a classified session. So behind closed doors, they're being told about what's happening here. 419-0 is pretty wild. I mean, I'm sure, I guess it must be so clear that, or at least what they're being told is so clear that they did this. I would say from the civilian point of view here, it looks like they're pointing the people towards looking at this is a serious thing and that they're adversaries, and it looks like this is prepping for war. Go ahead, Dex.
That number, okay, we've got the most divided. I mean, like, we literally had a State of the Union the other day, and there's people heckling, Congress people heckling in that. That's how divided we are. So for them to come out completely unanimous, 419-0, that's pretty significant. For what, and at the end of the day, it's kind of ceremonious. It's not necessarily like anything came from this other than just a statement. But it does show that division that's there can actually be united when it comes to things like conflict. And, again, we've always said they will create conflict to bring unity back after they've created their division. So it's, this is sort of a good precursor to seeing that in action. I think we're also going to see at some point, there's a lot of speculation going on right now about whether or not we're going to respond and what our response is going to be. And there probably will be. Knowing us, it'll be something stupid like, oh, we're going to sanction them for something else. But not that I think it would be smart to necessarily go, bomb something over there. That wouldn't be good either. But we'll see what kind of response. But there's got to be something. We can't just let it go as a country and say, okay, you can do that, and we won't respond.
Well, if they sent balloons, maybe we'll send them a bunch of clowns. Who knows? And then China gears up to shoot down U.S. drones. It says its military-industrial complex is already working on a list of technologies needed to fight off swarms of UAS, or basically these unmanned aerial vehicles, right? It says drones continue to move towards the center of the U.S. warfare, emerging as major spending priority and a go-to solution for almost every defense challenge, most especially in conflict with China. Networked drone swarms proved decisive in a recent Air Force simulation of a Taiwan Strait conflict. They broke through China's anti-access area denial efforts and ensured U.S. victory. So they're saying that these drones in a simulation would have been a part of a victory, right? It said that a former Deputy Assistant Defense Secretary said for strategy, and it says, in turn, Hudson Institute's Brian Clark, a former special assistant to the Chief of Naval Operation, has identified drones as the only means to fill in for an expected gap in American missile production. It is not surprising, then, that China has begun to develop countermeasures. A highlight of November's Zhuhai Air Show was the LW-30 laser defense system, a vehicle-mounted drone killer developed by China's Space Sanjiang Group, an optimized version of a weapon that debuted in the 2018 show. Now, this in mind, keep in mind this first thing that we were talking about here about the whole lasers. These lasers off Hawaii, I just wonder if these have an electronic component to them, like they can buzz or hit some sort of drone and do it in a mass area or something. Would that be something that's possible? If you're military and if you know anything about these laser systems, then let me know. But it says the LW-30 laser defense system, a vehicle-mounted drone killer developed by China's Space Sanjiang Group and unveiled in November. And it said that the state media claimed that the LW-30 can down small drones several kilometers away, taking just a few seconds to swivel, fire, and move on to the next target. So essentially, these drones are becoming more and more advanced. And of course, when they are in these drone swarms, they get even more dangerous. Of course, those swarms run by partially AI and different parameters that they go about. These things are scary. This is out of a sci-fi movie. This is out of certain movies. We've seen this. But this is happening in real life right now. Whatever you saw on TEDx is probably advanced so far that it's, super top classified stuff. So we'll talk about this ominous green laser shot down over Hawaii in just a second. But first, I do want to remind you guys, if you haven't already, make sure to go over and check out the X2. Any of the affiliates we have are products that we use and we believe will either save your life or make your life easier. If you don't have a backup power supply, this is one of the best. I have utilized this. I haven't used the X2 as much as I've used because I just got the X2s. But the Flex 1500 and solar generators in general, I've been able to take the Flex 1500 to multiple events, use it for even my kids' parties, for our camping, for almost everything. Once you have one of these, it is absolutely one of the most convenient things to have. Having power on the go, being able to plug something in wherever you are is absolutely amazing by itself. Again, you can power drills, you can power all sorts of stuff. I've had to take it out and power saws to chop wood, to fix things. I mean, it's been awesome. But as far as the Kodiak X2, this is the new lithium ion phosphate technology. What's better about that is the bragging rights of how long it lasts and how long the batteries last. You could use this for 16 years. Again, 16 years every single day, going from full to empty. And this thing will still have 80% of its battery capacity. Because lithium, as you know, degrades over time. The new phosphate technology is incredibly, incredibly durable. And again, with 80% capacity, after 16 years of using it every day, you would still have a full, like a Flex 1500 battery, which are 1,000 watts. You would still have that much capacity after 16 years. And that's if you used it every day. Most people are not going to be using these every day. But again, if SHTF happens, then you would. So these things will last decades if you take care of them. They are great. They are silent. You will not be able to hear this from 3 blocks away. And it is an incredible system. The Flex 1500 is expandable up to 96 batteries. These are an investment. These are really the top of the line. They're built like trucks. They're just incredibly beautiful, including the X2. So make sure to go check them out. These things will come in handy. Even if there isn't an SHTF, the next time you lose power, these things will come in incredibly handy. The X2 is UPS, meaning that you can actually keep this while you're not using it. Have your fridge plugged in. And if the power goes out, it automatically flips over. It's an uninterrupted power supply, so it means it's not going to harm it to have it plugged in while it's plugged into the wall. And then if the power goes out, it's going to then be powered by that. Therefore, not losing any groceries. If you've ever had a power outage for a day or two, then you lose hundreds of dollars worth of groceries, which nobody really can do. Might get some of your money back right off the bat if you have a power outage. Go to marfuglenews.com/energy to get 10% off, plus you will be supporting our channel at the same time. That's again, marfuglenews.com/energy. We are viewer powered, so thank you guys. So the ominous, go ahead, Dex.
Adam, I want to jump back real quick to the article we were just talking about before we get to this. It just reminded me of something that we covered in the past. So there was the third or fourth paragraph, right where you ended, they were talking about the costs per drone.
$1.75
taking out. $1.75. Do you remember we covered that I ran to the store, made drones cost 20 grand to build, but UKR was dropping half a million every time to shoot one down. From $500,000 a shot to $1.75.
So basically,
That's a huge savings.
they could make millions of these things and not even be spending what the budget is for the potholes.
Exactly. I mean, that's cheap. I mean, look, we're literally spending $500,000 to take down one. And I say we because we're the ones funding it and we're the ones sending them the equipment, right? So we're spending $500,000 and they have a tool that can do it for $1.75.
Well, and this is what I have envisioned is, so say off the West Coast, say China came up with, and they have an aircraft carrier that is a drone carrier. The entire carrier can go unmanned. So no human loss. If you blew it up, nobody would perish. They do have a staff on it now, but you're talking about an entire carrier that also carries autonomous drones. That pulls up on the West Coast. Say somehow they get close or some big event happens, an EMP hits the center of our country. Then you have a Chinese ship coming up to the West Coast, a carrier that has thousands of these autonomous drones on it. The drones swoop out and hit all of the targets of all of the owners of Bang Bangs, which again, just recently, California somehow leaked the documents that had every single Bang Bang owner, where they lived, how many weapons they had, all of that stuff. And I thought of that back then. I'm like, remember I was telling you guys, I was like, that's just weird that the guy in charge of this leaked out the documents of every single Bang Bang owner in California or in that area, right? So and that was awfully sketch. One thing about taking over the U.S., even if the power goes out, is we are armed. We are armed to the teeth. There's something like 100 weapons or more, 300 weapons for every single citizen. So obviously, not everybody has one, but somebody within 10 feet probably does. So you got a lot of problems if you take over us, and that's why we're pretty proud. We're like, yeah, if you, we got Bang Bangs. And we do. It would be hard to invade us. It's going to be nuts if SHTF happens, and that's why it's not going to be very safe in the U.S. when things go down, because people are going to be taking each other out like crazy. And again, that's not even where most people will perish. They'll perish because they won't have food and water. So it's pretty crazy to think $1.75 per cool. And imagine the money that goes into protecting it. Now, this is just as sketch as everything else that's going on. Ominous green lasers shot over Hawaii didn't come from NASA's satellite after all. So make sure to go over to the short shareable video. If you want to share this with friends and family and get their heads up, make sure to go over to Marfoogle News, our sister channel, and share that video out to as many people as you can. All of you watching, if there's 4,000 people, if you share it just with one person, we could bring in some extra people and reach more. Dex, let's talk about this laser thing, and the videos and the pictures coming out look like it's something straight out of the Matrix.
Well, when it first came out, and I didn't even hear this until now, but when it first came out, they sort of wrote it off, said, oh, it's just a NASA thing. Don't worry about it. And they all said, yeah, it probably is. But they researched it more and they realized, no, it's not, because while there is, plenty of satellites with capabilities that can use lasers, and they use them for lots of different things, measuring the, they basically bounce it back like LiDAR, which is very common. It's a laser measurement system. It's not uncommon to have that technology up in space. So they just sort of, no big deal. But then they actually started to look at it and they said, no, it's not NASA. And then another team started to triangulate when it happened, what was in the airspace at the time, or in that position in orbit at the time, that had the technology. And they determined that it is probably the China Daki-1 satellite. Why is this satellite dropping and shooting these lasers and doing these measurements over Hawaii? Why is it doing that? We don't know. They write it off right now in the article to just say, hey, don't worry, they're just measuring the atmosphere. They're, doing weather measurements. That's what their satellite is meant to do. But it just seems very suspect to me, given everything that's going on right now, that, oh, by the way, In Hawaii, the satellite owned by G is mapping things out or doing something strange with these lasers. And this is exactly what it looks like. What you see on the screen, they literally called it what looked like the Matrix, was these beams of lasers coming down, these laser points that were coming down throughout the duration.
So, and by the way, this kind of LiDAR type thing, or this looks like measurements, right? Well, think about what would you need to, and I haven't heard this from many people yet. I haven't heard this from anybody, but again, who knows? Maybe somebody is speculating about this. What if this is measuring for those autonomous drones we just talked about? What if if they were to do an attack with those drones, and if they scanned the area, they would be able to plot an attack without, actually going there. They can't do it from Google Earth or something. They would have to plot where these things would fly and how they would fly and what they would attack. What if this thing silently goes over all of Hawaii, and the only reason you saw this is because of cloud cover or something, right? What if they scan it into a computer and say, this is where we're going to attack? The balloons flying over, what if those are doing the same thing? What if they just scanned all of our bases, and these autonomous drones will come fly in under the radar, fly at 10 feet over? All of a sudden, you're on your front porch and something buzzes over you at 15 feet up above. I mean, think about DJI's drones. Just the commercially available stuff can dip through trees. You could bike through a forest, and these DJI drones now can basically go through all the trees, go under branches, and keep following the target. Think about then military technology of what these things could do. These things could buzz way below. If you had 10,000 of these fly over the West Coast and go in low, nobody would even see it. And we're talking smaller drones. They fly and they buzz over everything. No, by the time we notice, they would have been hitting their targets. They also have long-range small drones. Before, this technology couldn't have existed 20 years ago. The drones would run out of gas or they would run out. But now with electric batteries and this, and with the power of the motors, they can fly all the way across the United States on their battery. Whereas, with the DJI stuff, it's like the advancements in the commercial section, of the consumer stuff. It's like we're happy if we get a 45-minute flight time. Who knows what they have? I mean, even the fact that in lithium, they have now the lithium iron phosphate stuff. All of the advancements that we get in the consumer realm, they all came from most likely, forward movement in the military and government aspects of it. They get all that stuff first, and then it trickles down to us. I think they were scanning things and scanning the area for something to come. But that's just my thought. A surprise attack or a Pearl Harbor type thing would be a real quick way to get into a massive war. Look at what China's doing right now. They're hoarding everything. They're hoarding wheat. They're hoarding corn. They're hoarding rice. They're hoarding all sorts of foods. They're buying more gold than we've ever seen before. And the whole rest of the world is preparing for the dollar to stop being the main money. Say that's fear-mongering. But I would rather be somebody who heard this and at least has an idea of it or has it rumbling in the back of my brain rather than being hit by surprise. That's why you talk about theoretical scenarios. If you at least think about it once, then it's there. And if it happens, when it happens, you won't sit there for 2 days trying to figure out what the heck's going on. You go, oh, this just happened. A secret Russian satellite has broken apart in orbit. Dex, go over to you.
Wow. This is extremely suspect, in my opinion. When you read the article, they're going to tell you a couple things. They're going to say the satellite was suspicious in the way it originally launched back in 2015. It went up with a few other satellites, but then a fourth one veered out, and then they didn't announce that they were launching it. And they came back and later said, yes, it is, but it's secret and we're not going to tell you much about it. And they didn't. And then that satellite, or the one we're talking about right here, spent a lot of time tailing a rocket body the whole time. In its orbit, it was literally hovering right behind this rocket body. It would move into different positions and do stuff. So they actually labeled it like they labeled one of the other ones we've covered before, a satellite killer, and that they thought that's what it was. They also explain that this thing is now in pieces, in many pieces, and they, from their initial look at it, they say it did not collide with anything; that it actually exploded. Now, they're quick to just say it probably was fuel, and maybe they're right. Maybe the fuel cell blew up. Who knows? But given the state of things right now, given what's happening in UKR, given we've got Elon and his sats, we've got Xi and his sats, shooting lasers down. We've got Space Force now monitoring everything that's up there, and they're the ones coming out and telling us, "Hey, this satellite, this suspicious satellite, is now in a whole bunch of pieces." And don't worry, it's not going to come into the atmosphere for 100 years or more, so that's not a problem. Outside of it being junk floating around that might hit other things, it's a problem. But what actually caused it to end?
What if it's purposeful?
Was it purposeful? Did we actually take a satellite out? That could be the case here, and we may not find out about it for a little bit.
Well, Dex, also think about the option where it's in 85 pieces. What if those aren't 85 pieces? What if it deployed something? Or what if it was made to separate into 85 pieces? What if it was meant to explode and turn into 85 pieces of debris to knock out other satellites? They have talked about this domino effect happening, where if something went in the right trajectory and was hit, then it would rotate around and it could damage all of the satellites. What if it was something on purpose? Or if the U.S. took it out, then that would be an act of war. If Russia knew and said, hey, they just took out one of our secret satellites, what was it doing? There's a lot of questions here, but it's pretty clear to me. My opinion is we're already at war. And you don't believe me, go to the Space Force generals and the Space Force colonels. They're saying we're already at war in space. They say that it's been at war for 2 years now. They said we have a war going on above our heads. Think about how the ISS, China backed out, and then China said, we're going to have our own, and now it's finished. They have a 3-piece space station that's already done. If you're new here, if you remember hearing the news about them tracking these huge rocket pieces that came into orbit and they didn't know where they were going to land, and everybody made a big deal out of it. All 3 of the things that they said, there's this another rocket's coming down and we don't know where it's going to land. It's very irresponsible of China. All 3 of those rockets were because they were giant pieces of rocket that were carrying up massive pieces to the Chinese space station. The Chinese space station went from, they told us like, hey, we're going to do our own, to now it's done. The 3rd piece was delivered. That was that, and delivered as far back as that last piece that was hovering around the planet. And supposedly these things were set up to where they got there and they connected to themselves. So something is happening above our heads. It makes sense for all the weird stuff we're seeing in the sky. Who knows? But yeah, if this could be something very, very bad. So our point here is to let you know, like, you should keep your head on a swivel. You should always keep your ducks in a row. Right now is a really good time to get your stuff in a row. I think we've provided enough evidence of something bigger going on. The thing we keep running up against and warning people is everybody else around you is saying everything is a distraction. Well, one of these things must not be a distraction, and if all of these things are leading towards a bad event, then I don't think it's statistically possible that everything is a distraction. I mean, is it? Could they literally just make everything a distraction and we're just in a simulation or something? I don't know. Anyways, I feel we all feel it. You have a gut instinct, and your gut instinct is saying something far worse than CV is coming. UKR conflict. Elon Musk's SpaceX firm bars from using Starlink tech from drone control. Now, nobody really knows how they're doing this, how they're actually putting this into into play, but they're saying that they're not going to let them use it for offensive reasons. Some people think that Elon is kind of getting his revenge for all of this crap that's coming his way, but that's assuming that he really is this like hero that's for free speech and everything else, and he's not, CEO, right? Controlled Oppo. Dex, they heard my opinion over on Marfoogle News. Make sure to go see the short shareable video over there. Let's hear your opinion on this.
I think that he's trying to protect his investment. I really think that, and I don't know if it's as much him taking sides. I'm sure those that don't like him are going to start writing stories saying, look, Elon is supporting, Vlad and not helping UKR because he's turning off access to his satellites. That'll be the narrative. We'll see that tomorrow. But I think in reality, what he's trying to do is not actually be a tool for conflict, but be a tool strictly for communication. And if a country like UKR is in conflict and the communication lines are down, having him put his satellites there and allowing the people to use them so they can have communications is a good thing. And if the military uses that too, and it's just communications, it's kind of okay. But when they start tracking and launching and guiding offensive equipment using his satellites, that becomes a different perspective. And I think he doesn't want to be responsible for that. And it's probably makes a lot of sense because of his position. He's tied with the U.S. government, but not necessarily these other governments. As a matter of fact, he even offered Turkey to put satellites up, and they said no. They didn't want it right away. I don't know if that's since changed, but when the quake happened, he offered to put them there as well. But I guess the point being is, it's not like he's not using his equipment for the government, because we've seen the alluding to and the other information that they're doing with the satellite systems for the U.S. government specifically. So it's not like they're not using it. But I think he's maybe in a position where he doesn't want to all of a sudden have a fleet of his satellites wiped out by Vlad. And maybe he won't be compensated for it. Maybe it's not covered under their insurance policy. Maybe the U.S. government's not willing to cover that. I don't know. But that's what it looks like to me. He's basically saying you're not going to use our equipment for this stuff. You can use it to talk to each other. You can get internet access, but you're not going to use it for offensive guidance of equipment and missiles.
So they're essentially saying that they don't want to be involved in either side of the conflict. Everybody's theorizing if that actually means that he's helping out Vlad in a way. Again, you can make your own mind up on that. This seems like a very obvious sign as well that things are getting close. German politicians and military chiefs suggest return of conscription. Now, in the paperwork side of this, a lot of the countries have gotten rid of conscription or it's not active. Now, all of these different countries, there's at least 6 that are talking about bringing conscription, and even ours mentioned putting women and adding women to our draft, known, as conscription or a draft. It says political military figures in Germany have suggested the return of a compulsory military service after the new defense minister described the 2011 phase-out of general conscription as a, quote, mistake that had contributed to alienating the general public from civic institutions. The German parliamentary commissioner for the armed forces, Eva Hogel, of the center-left SPD, on Wednesday urged the government to ask itself whether some form of obligatory civic service was required to address staff shortages in the German army's ranks. It says, quote, we definitely need more personnel in the Bundeswehr, Hogel told the Augsburger Allgemeine newspaper. The chief of the German Navy, Jan Christian Kack, also recently proposed a return of mandatory military service along the Norwegian model, whereby men and women called in for an examination upon turning 19, but only small motivated percentage of each year group is drafted into the army. It says, quote, I believe a nation that needs to become more resilient in times like these will have a higher level of awareness if it is mixed through with soldiers. There's a point to be made about that as far as I wonder how this actually, how these work out as far as like the mandatory service. I wonder how it helps out in culture and everything. If young men or young men and women end up going and doing something structured like this right out of high school, and I wonder if that actually helps in general when it's not wartime. Dex, when you saw this, what did you think?
This type of thing doesn't happen unless something's on the horizon. And when they talk about this, any of these NATO countries, including ourselves, when we start talking about increasing our investment in the military human resources, so to speak, whether it be through drafts, conscriptions, or even just expansion, it's worrisome, especially given what's going on right now. So it makes you think that they know something's on the horizon and they know they're going to need more people.
Also, many countries in recent years, since most have called this the soft generation, have not joined. We, of course, did not hit our requirements as far as all of the different military branches are offering, gigantic listing bonuses because they just don't have enough people signing up for service. There's not the same pride for our country. I mean, look at any of these videos that go around questioning, are you proud to be an American? It's pretty horrible when you to see the people's responses to it. What's crazy is even the people that are proud patriots, they're the loudest about saying that this is, messed up, because you don't have to support the current government or how they're running things to be proud of where you're from. At least that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. By the way, speaking of which, I actually had that already planned here, but I can move that forward here in a second. It says, I have a prayer request for Lisa R. Hall's daughter. She's in critical condition from an accident and can really use prayers from the Fugel fam. Thank you and much love. Aliyah, especially you didn't have to spend $20 to do that. I don't know if you did that because you had to put more writing in, but yeah, sorry. Yeah, I guess my phone's off. You could have just texted me that. Stephen McMahon, sometime back you discussed, thank you, Ilea, that was really sweet of you. Sometime back you discussed how our gov was experimenting with the use of balloons to keep up the electrical grid and attack enemies. Well, there was Operation Starfall, which they have for communications. Dex, I'm trying to think about what he's saying. The balloons and the electrical grid. I was thinking of Operation Starfall.
Yeah, Starfall is the only one I recall from the balloons, which was keeping up the internet when the grid goes down. Some line of radio communications. Yeah,
huh. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. It will probably come to me later because we cover 30 to 40 stories every day, 5 nights a week for years. I do remember a lot, and I think that's what helps everybody here connect the dots. It's not so much the show, it's just the sheer amount that we're keeping track of these things as they happen, and the encouragement not to forget about the prior things that happen. Stephen McMahon again says Eisenhower was denied entry to Area 51 in the 50s. General Mattis wouldn't tell Orange Man about the G balloons. Who runs us? Well, Mattis, and then Milley giving a heads up to China if we were going to strike. Like, how infiltrated do you have to be for us to give them a heads up if we were going to do a first strike? It tells you how bad it might have been. Like, what if we were almost at this point back then? I'm in Pleasant Hill, L.A. Increase of aircraft here, says Jeff Stoker. Jeff Stoker, thank you for the support. And again, you're not alone. There's people all over the country saying the same thing. Carol McLean says, really do appreciate all the time you put into your shows. Thank you. Carol McLean, thank you so much. And we appreciate you saying that. And then Thomas C. Bryan says, duck and cover. Oops, too late. LOL. Yes, it is a little bit too late. Let's see here. So actually, while we're on that, before we move on, I would like you guys to go over to Lisa R. Hall, say a prayer, positive vibes, comment on one of her videos. If you want to write down a prayer so she can read them later, you can always go to her channel. But in general, just please go over and pray for Lisa R. Hall. She's one of our longtime mods. She's our longest running mod, actually. And her daughter is in critical condition. please pray for her. She is the sweetest woman in the world. For this to hit her is just absolutely uncalled for. She is just, there's not a mean bone in this woman's body. Anybody who is, I don't know if you guys have ever heard her call in. She is literally the sweetest person that has ever been associated with this show. She's just an innocent heart. She's just an absolute one of my favorite people in the world. So please pray for her daughter right now. She needs everybody to crowd around her and pray around her daughter, that her daughter gets through all of this and comes out of it. It's just really rough to hear things like this, especially when it's, close to you. So please, if you can, pray for Lisa Hall's daughter. And pray for Lisa. This is really, really rough for her. All right. And then Russia amassing. Okay, let's first go off over the U.S. government map. Shows areas most at risk for being targeted in nuclear conflict. Dex, I'm pretty sure you probably want to say something about Lisa as well. And then do you want to cover the U.S. government map? Shows areas.
Oh yeah, I appreciate, everyone pray for her. That'd be great. I'm praying for her, and hopefully her daughter heals quickly and they can get through this. I know it's a difficult time. As far as this map, we've seen numerous maps that have come out. We've covered almost this exact same headline, just not U.S. government map. It's someone else's map of the targets. So this is a little different in the sense that this is coming from, the FEMA. It's from 2015, I think, but it is still being resurfaced. And it sort of is, I guess, being resurfaced at this time because of the state of escalation that is going on between Xi and Vlad and ourselves. And there's, it's got to be on the forefront of many people's minds, given where things are. So, but when you look at this map, it's just a totally different version. I've seen versions of this that don't have nearly as many dots on them. This one clearly has a lot more dots and locations, and depending on where you live, you may pinpoint part of it and go, oh, wow, I didn't realize I'm that close. Or you may look at it and go, yeah, I realize there's a base here. There's a major city there. There's a huge airport here that may affect why you're being targeted. But
Can you
if
read...
you look at the legend,
Yeah, because the legend's not visible. Can you read us the legend of what the triangles, dots,
let me see if it's more visible over here. Hang on.
Because some of them have red dots and triangles around them. Some have black dots. If you can see this right here, I don't know if I zoom in, it's just going to get even more blurry. But right here, right? Oh, you can't see my mouse. Yeah, there's in the middle, exact middle of the screen right now, there's a triangle with a dot in it, a red dot. There's black dots. There's open triangles. And then there is a fourth thing here that... Yeah, apparently there's two different kinds of red dots. One is like a red and black dot or something. So there's huge swaths of places that aren't targeted, though. I guess we know where to go. Out into the middle of the desert where no one is. Bring a camel pack.
Okay, I found it. Unfortunately, this article only had a low-res version of that map. I don't know why they didn't use a higher res, so I had to go find it somewhere else. But the black dots are a target in a 2,000 warhead scenario. The triangle is a target in a 500 scenario. So if they launch 2,000, the black dots will be hit. If they only launch 500, it'll be to the triangles. Or in, give or take those ranges. And then, of course, the red stars are state capitals. The red squares are cities.
So they're, I couldn't even tell it was a star. That's how bad this map is. Yeah, that's, geez. So the black dots is if it was all out, just, mutually assured destruction type of thing. The East Coast looks really bad. Same with the West Coast, California, Oregon looks like there's some places that might be okay. In fact, there's big parts of Oregon that are look relatively. I don't know what the range on some of those are. It's kind of freaky. You can access this map. Dex, can we upload the high-res one to the website? I know that we have the low-res version on the article.
Yeah, I'm going to put the other article. It's from the Independent. I'll put the other article on there right next to it. So if you guys are looking for the clearer map, just go to the next article.
Yeah, but it again was done by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which they always put those little disclaimers on videos that mention that. The map indicates areas such as Montana and North Dakota may be vital to strike U.S. forces. Montana and North Dakota. Where did that balloon fly over again? Wasn't it? Oh, Montana? Oh, yeah. In the west, Colorado, Montana, North Dakota, and Wyoming have clusters of targets noted on the map. So these places that you wouldn't think, but unfortunately those places have bases. Some of the larger targets included active nuclear plants. So they would hit us in the nuclear plants that cause even more damage. There are approximately 90 plants across the U.S., with some located in Alabama, Arizona, Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Tennessee. Areas of rural Idaho, Maine, Northern California, as well as Oregon may be more improbable targets. Well, hopefully, because that's where I'm going. And then before we move on, with all of this stuff happening, most of you are already stocked up. But if you aren't already, this is a really good, affordable way to stock up on freeze-dried 25-year shelf life food. If you haven't checked out the My Patriot Supply stuff, the great part about this is you can get a whole lot of food for very, very inexpensively. You can go and get yourself a 3-month plan, which is now $200 off, right around $600. Now, that sounds like a lot, but that's 3 months of food. Now, that's if you go bulk. You can get smaller packages. You can even get 3-day kits. You can get single packages from them if you want. Their main thing, though, is that it is a really, really great way to get bulk food when you start breaking it down. If you get a 3-month supply, that's a month and a half for 2 people, or a month of food for 3 people, again, or a few weeks if you've got a bigger family. So, again, this is a great way to get a bunch of food all at once. It comes in Mylar bags. It's freeze-dried, which it extracts all of the water and moisture out of it, which actually holds more of the flavor than dehydrated foods. Now, dehydration is a great way to go as well. You can do some stuff yourself. You don't get as much of the flavor, but at the point of SHTF, I don't think you'll care about that. We do have resources for you as far as other channels that are teaching how to dehydrate and things like this. So if you can't afford this, again, we did this because this is the more affordable route to do these freeze-dried meals. Some meals, just a meal is $15 a piece if you go and grab one from Walmart or Costco or some place like that. Some of them are $10. But if you get it in bulk, you get a way much better deal. And they're sealed Mylar, sealed in buckets. But as far as freeze drying it at home, that is also expensive. Freeze dryers can range into the thousands of dollars if you want to get a bigger one that can actually pump out faster than you can live your life. So again, this will be food that would last until 2052, and that's its best buy. So imagine in 2050 pulling out some food and eating it like it was made yesterday. That's what's awesome about freeze dried foods. They also have a meat bucket, which sounds not appealing, but it's freeze-dried meat, and you can get it in bulk, and that would add to a lot of the stuff that is in this. Go to marfooglenews.com/prep. You'll not only get a huge discount on packages like the 3-month, but you'll also be helping our channel, and you'll be stocking yourself up for any kind of disaster. It doesn't have to be the end of the world. It can be, of course, a blackout or a power grid, folly or a storm. A lot of you that may live where you have hurricanes and things like that, definitely a good thing to have on hand. Most people have about 3 days of food. Also, check out the Alexa Pure Pro. They have the water filtration system there that is really great, because obviously the reason why 90% of people would perish in an EMP is not because we would be taking each other out. It would be more because we wouldn't have drinkable, potable water. So that does gravity-fed water, and it takes out 99% of the nasty stuff. All right. And then Russia amassing 1,800 tanks, 700 aircraft, and 500,000 men. So we already covered this part. Now there's some more specific details about, what is actually some of the numbers that we didn't know. Now we know that there's more tanks than they thought. There's also more jets involved. They are sending in the real stuff. I've talked to several military and active and retired, and they actually do believe that this is true. So I don't know if that makes any difference. I know that most people are saying, "Oh, it's distraction, this and that." They believe this is the real deal. That now these are the real guys going in. This is the real Russian military, the trained guys, and that they're about to do a huge blitz. They have heard from their active friends and family that this is about to kick off, at least with UKR and Russia. So this is not good to hear, but it's expected. Dex, you can also get more of my opinion over on Marfoogle News, our short shareable video we put out earlier. Dex, do you want to talk about this and some of the new numbers that have come out?
Well, I think let's show the infographic. If you scroll down in here, this can give people a little bit more of a visual. We've talked about the 500,000 soldiers numerous times now for the last week and a half. But the other numbers, when we talk specifically about, tanks, armored vehicles, artillery, rocket launchers, fighter jets, helicopters, but then also the location that they're expecting the surge. So you can see on this map that they're expecting to see a push in from Donbass into Bakhmut. They're expecting to see a push from Crimea into southern UKR. What's interesting is they didn't really call out Belarus into Kiev. That's one of the areas that, we've often thought, because that's one of the things they did initially in the very beginning. There's also been some rumors and speculation that maybe Belarus is not being as involved right now as they were in the early days, at least as allowing them to transfer through and set up staging. Although I still think the verdict's out on them. I don't know if we'll see them get engaged this round or not, but this is what the current expectation is. This is the current positioning. The blue is obviously UKR. The pinkish color is territory that is controlled by Vlad. The green is territory that was claimed back by UKR after Vlad took it. And of course, obviously the red is all of Russia's current territory. We have talked quite a bit about Crimea. I think we're going to hear more about that. We need to watch that one specifically because I know UKR is looking to make a push. And I think we're going to talk later in the show about some of the changes that are coming out in the local area there in Crimea around their assessment of the current threats and what they're doing, and basically kind of upping their security level of who's allowed in and out of the peninsula and into the location there because they're afraid of that. So we'll talk about that a little later.
Well, it's coming up pretty soon here. So and then I guess I almost think we should talk about the EM here in a second. But yes, and then let's see here. Wagner Group stops prisoners as growing numbers. And by the way, the Belarus thing, that would be a surprise. The thing is they have done in previous wars, at least the Russian military, they know the importance of surprise. Belarus is a big part of this. Belarus has been the whole time with it. Strategically, if you look at it, I mean, you don't have to be a genius or an expert on this. For them to be able to go in both with this and with this, that would be a huge advantage. But it would also, I guess, in military terms, it might be a disadvantage. You have your forces broken up and maybe, two different factions. Maybe they're just all going in through one direction and just going to charge right in. I don't know, but it's obviously much closer. I'm sure as far as the distance it would have to travel from Belarus to get to Kiev. But maybe they don't care as much about Kiev as they do about some of these other areas. And then Wagner Group stops recruiting prisoners as growing numbers refuse to be enlisted on suicide missions. Maybe they heard the rumors. Who knows? The Wagner Group has stopped recruiting prisoners as growing numbers refuse to be enlisted on suicide missions in UKR, according to multiple reports. Says a prisoner in Russia's Tula region told the independent Russian media outlet Meduza in a report published Wednesday that inmates no longer want even to discuss the possibility of joining the conflict in UKR. One of the prisoners who left with Wagner Group told me that after he asked Wagner representatives how much training there would be, they told him the battlefield will be your training. It's quite possible that they're already directly participating in combat, the prisoner told Meduza. Well, you would think if you saw your prisoner buddies going and joining, and then obviously part of it is some of them get early dismissal or they get years off their sentence, is from what we covered. But most of them, have long sentences and they get the tail end done. You would think you would hear some rumors of who passed and who didn't. I don't know if this is Ganda or not, but again, it's something worth noting that they're not doing. Dex, could you think of other reasons maybe they're not recruiting the prisoners? Or if the prisoners would, if it's not because of this, if it's because of something else, or?
Well, I think it's more along the lines of they needed them early on because they didn't want to use their proper resources. So they were looking for expendables, if you want to call it that. And I think that they considered everybody they threw in early as expendable because they knew they were just biding time, or they were just, they didn't want to, they didn't, as we've said, they didn't want to use their primary resources for the first haul of this. And so I think that stage is now over and we're moving to the next stage. So that's my guess. And I don't think that these guys are, they've been very useful because word has gotten out that they're basically being thrown into the front line. And literally, we had an article the other day we covered. They used their soldiers to gain an inch, like literally threw them on the front line for an inch worth of gains. It was
what they said.
Yeah, of course, that's what they said. But to some point, there's got to be there's got to be some truth interweaved into all of this, Skanda. And I think grabbing your troops out of the prison yard isn't necessarily a good idea.
Okay, but
otherwise everybody would do.
There also could be an option where this is Ganda in the way that in reality they don't need the prisoners anymore. In the beginning, that would go along the theory that they were just throwing 55-year-old guys, and it's kind of messed up, but in their culture, it's like the men, hey, go in and help advance our country. If you die a war hero, right? Go in there, send in the expendables, the unexperienced, gain as much as you can without touching any of your military, which many of us think that they're saving it up for a real World War III type scenario. Send all those guys, do as much damage as possible without ever, putting any kind of resources in. But what UKR says is, because they're afraid of that they're not doing these things because we're so badass that they just go in there and they get killed. This very well could be the way they spin it to make it look like, they're afraid to go against UKR. They're not going in there to perish. When in reality, it's because Vlad's not cutting any more years off these prisoners because he's sending in the real guys. So you could look at it many different ways. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you over on DLive. Scooby-Doo-Doo-Right, thank you for gifting a Marfia badge to Bugnana. And Bugnana, again, thank you for being here. Skyhouse, Scooby-Doo-Doo-Right, West of the West, thank you. Vault Music. I have unspoken prayer requests. Much love, guys. Unspoken prayer requests. Vault Music. Well, praying for you too, I think that's what you mean. I'll pray for you, Vault. And then I know you've had some issues as well recently. We've got there's a lot of people hurting everywhere right now. Let's see here. And now we're going to talk about the EAM here in a second here too. Thomas C. Bryan, thank you. Carol McLean, Jeff Stoker, thank you. Stephen McMahon, again, thank you so much. Oh, Adam, you realize that the memory is the second thing to go. I forgot what were we talking about? Be Real Beast for Hall. God bless. Be Real Beast, thank you again. I appreciate your prayer for Lisa here, and thank you for the support. Again, yeah, we got to do something for Lisa. That's really rough. again, if you guys don't know, if you probably know her from the chat, but you just, unless you've spoke with her, you just don't know how amazing this woman is. She doesn't have a mean bone in her body. It's just not who she is. She has gone through all the drama that the Fugel fam's gone through. You know, just being a mod of mine means you get a certain amount of flack. It's crazy if you know, all of us have flack that we get all the time. We get lies made up about us. Lies have been made up about her and every other mod. She has just done it with grace, and she's just an amazing person in general. All right, and then Russians preparing for UKR defenders' liberation of Crimea, main directorate of intelligence. Dex, why don't you go over this? I'm going to change the batteries to the camera real quick.
So what's happening here in Crimea is they're raising their terrorist threat level to the high level. They're basically saying they're establishing this higher level. They're doing it because they've got intelligence that they think about them being targeted. Obviously, they're being targeted for the advancement of the conflict, but they're looking at specific potential actions being taken. Remember, the bridge was taken out there a while back. It's since been repaired, and we had Vlad drive his, Mercedes across it to show everybody and make a big to-do about it. But they're literally looking now at potentially limiting and controlling and determining who is allowed on and off the peninsula, who's allowed to cross the bridges. They're going to start cracking down at a much greater level, given the state of affairs right now. So that's the point here with Crimea. They've raised this threat level, as they call it, to the highest level, and they've got, I guess they're quoting a lot of evidence they have, and that they think that there's going to be events happening inside there. Of course, keep in mind, they took Crimea back in 2014. They annexed it. And so it's part of Vlad's country. But the people that live there, it's a mix. It's a mixture of, Russians and a mixture of Ukrainians. So there are going to be people that are pro one side or the other, probably a little bit more leaning towards Vlad's side there, probably a lot more leaning towards Vlad's side there. But still, there are going to be other people that are there that aren't in his favor, and they live there, they're in there. So they've got to worry about what type of actions are going to be caused by those actors, so to speak, as well as anybody else that's coming in. Whether, we just covered a couple days ago, we covered how UKR was bragging that they've got special forces that are inside Vlad's territories, and not even in his territories, but inside his country, trying to wreak havoc and take things out or take people out or other things like that. So, that's the point here. Obviously, Crimea is a big issue for UKR, and we'll see how it continues to play out.
Dex, do you remember a few weeks ago the one gentleman saying that, or no, was it the General SVR said that they were worried about, big attacks or something from, the one guy saying, Russia's going to have to worry about attacks, but it won't be by who and by what? I don't know. And remember we said, maybe that was them saying that NATO would be doing it. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that we were talking about them being able to reach Engels, but more specifically, them getting more longer range, potentially at the time, getting more longer range weapons. We've since told them and committed that we're sending over those longer range. But the quote that was made was, "Hey, we expect to see damage done inside Russia's country. It is what you would expect to see in a conflict. We don't know. We're not saying it's going to be us, and we don't know who's going to do it, but we know it's going to happen." And that's basically what they said, which you could infer it means NATO. And now, that was coming from UKR.
Yeah, and now Russia is actually putting up this alert level and saying that they're essentially watching for something to happen, some sort of big events around the time of the anniversary, right? Maybe backwards from what we thought it was going to be, and maybe that something else is going to happen. The lasers going on in Hawaii, the balloon happening over the last couple of weeks. the Russian ships off the East Coast, the Russian ships off Hawaii. All of these things are going down. This is why people are paying attention. Everybody is hyper alert. I'm going to show you here. This is a EAM. This is an emergency action message. So it is military, but we don't know if it's important or if it's nothing. But this definitely thought that this was pretty interesting. Which Foogle fam sent this to us? Who actually?
Jake B.
Jake B.
Jake B in chat on YouTube.
Jake B, thank you for letting us know about this. Again, doesn't necessarily mean anything, but you have to say it's pretty weird. It says mainsail. This is Whiskey Alpha Romeo, right? This is war. Mainsail. This is war. Over. So let's see. And then
mainsail, this is Whiskey Alpha Romeo, and 255 is my location. How am I in your location? Over. Whiskey Alpha Romeo, this is Andrews. I have you weak but readable. I say again, weak but readable. Over. Roger, mainsail. This is Whiskey Alpha Romeo. Thank you for the radio check. Over.
So again, could be just a standard radio check from a sender named War, right? Dex, I mean, when somebody sees this, obviously when you read the transcript of what they're saying, because it's in military, Whiskey Alpha Romeo is war. I guess, it very well could be nothing. But
it very well could be. But it's also interesting because you look at when you go, and by the way, folks, you guys can go look at this yourself. It's eam.watch. It's a website. It's where you get the Sky Kings, but there haven't been any of those lately. None this year so far. There's maybe one or two last year. But this is, they transcribe them. People can report them. They upload the recordings if they have them so that you can hear them like you just heard. But the interesting thing is when you look through all of these, the senders or the names, it's like Division, it's Gas House, it's Splendor, it's Surgical, it's Municipal, it's Bad Daddy, okay, Mainsail. These are all the call signs, but you have this one call sign that is WAR. And of course, he uses the abbreviations Whiskey Alpha Romeo when he's saying it, but the call sign, just like anyone else's call sign, like Acid Rock or Division, their call signs are their call signs. It's a word or a couple of words that references their call sign. So it's just kind of interesting that they chose to use this one. And I don't know if they'll ever use it again. I don't know if they recycle these, how they go about choosing them. But that's the call sign. And it, as you show right here, when it's written out, it kind of looks ominous.
Yeah, mainsail, this is war. Mainsail, this is war. Over. I mean, and I bet you we're going to get military folks saying, oh, this is no big deal. That's fine. We just wanted to pass on the message. And I think with everything going on, it's just something to point out. Hopefully it is absolutely nothing. But with everything happening right now, it's pretty interesting. So let's see here. And before we move on, I just want to point out that you guys are all amazing. And it's our community that really makes us strong. So thank you, everybody, for treating everyone else with respect. Thank your mods. They're doing a great job of, again, making sure that everybody has all the links that are appropriate. Making sure that if we speak about another creator, they always drop their links and direct you in the right place. Thank them for also just being an awesome presence here and taking care of everybody and answering questions that are asked and everything else. So thank you guys, and much appreciated. Make sure to go over to marfooglenews.com/friends to find them. All right, Dex, let's go over to the web only. And somebody did ask about the whole grid, off-grid thing. If you do want to go check out off-grid, you can. marfooglenews.com/off-grid. To your question, essentially off-grid is, these are the bags that you get if you don't want to be tracked or traced. We don't mention them that often, but again, if you use the code Marfoogle, you can get a big savings. They make bags, like bug-out bags, that actually have slots in them for each electronic you own. And it will, once they go in, there's no signals in or out. That also means they're basically Faraday bags, and that also means they'll be protected against any kind of event. These bags can fit about 3 days worth of food, so perfect for go bags / protecting your, very expensive electronics and things like that. They also make a duffel bag as well. The duffel bag can basically, you can throw anything electronic in there, and the thing is protected. It's one big Faraday bag. Also, this was designed originally for federal agencies as like evidence bags, and then they opened up off-grid for consumer uses. So these are really high-quality military-grade kind of stuff. So go to marfooglenews.com/off-grid, and then Dex, let's go over the web only. There's a lot of it.
Man, there certainly is. I love that duffel bag. I got it specifically to throw all my communication devices in it. So all my radios, everything for SHTF sits in that bag, ready to roll, and I know it's protected, so it's great. It's a very awesome bag.
Before you go,
lots going on.
Before you say anything, because we're running out of time, James from Veritas. Holy crap! If you don't know about this, you need to go check. This is one of the most important things on here. Go to the very top piece here, and then go to Twitter. Follow me at Marfoogle. They're basically saying he who is that project there's a scandal. The timing of this is incredibly suspicious. I would like you to know the people that he just went up against are the biggest people in the world, one of the most powerful companies in the world, and one of the scariest in many opinions. He did some serious damage. So out of nowhere, 16 employees coming out and saying that he's abusive and all of this. I would follow the 16 employees and see how many of them all of a sudden live in mansions. This is messed up. So, okay, back to you, Dex.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most important ones. Go check that out. That's on the website. Of course, there's lots of coverage over on Twitter. Continuing the coverage here, there's some stuff going on with free speech versus disinfo. There's a good article about that. A little bit more of an update on with Vlad, specifically around some of the worries they have for assassin attempts that may be going down, and expanding upon what that would mean in the conflict. The interesting article on tech spending, or I'm sorry, not tech, but crowd control tech. Specifically, it's a fascinating article about how that's been used, like the rubber bullets and stuff like that, but more specifically these new pieces of equipment that they've been building that other countries that are being sold to military and police forces around the world for crowd control. Pretty fascinating. There's a guy, the most modified man in the world, is like splitting his hand in half to make like this weird claw hand. I don't know if you're into that kind of thing, or you just think it's kind of interesting to see that kind of weird stuff. It's there. Not something I'm looking to do, but definitely an odd spectacle for sure. A continuation with all the hoopla that's going on in the political spectrum. It's all there. It's going on for sure. Some of the things that with the politics, both on T-Man and who they're going after, who they think is going to run, who could spoil 2024, etc. There's a lot of coverage of that. So if you're looking for it, it's all there. Of course, there's the obligatory Elon Musk things in the news, specifically around, I think one of the Apple founders is throwing some shade at him, as well as others. In the chat GPT or AI space, if you want to call it that, the continuation of the story is there, but now Alibaba, aka Xi or China, is now getting into this realm. They're going to be launching their version of it. Seems like everybody's coming out with their AI tools. So if you want more information on that, it's all there. Also, some updates on manufacturers. There's a new manufacturer in Germany that wants to actually send their new tanks to UKR. I don't think that'll get approved right away, but of course they do because they want to sell them. But that's there. That and so much more. So, gosh, there's a lot. There's a lot going on. There's just as much here as there was in the show. So make sure you go check it out. It's very simple. Just go to marfooglenews.com, click for the show, or even easier, if you're on YouTube, open up that description, or on Rumble, open up that description, click on the show notes link. It'll take you right here. We put it together for you every night. It's the rest of the story, everything we couldn't get to, and some of those topics that are just a little too far out that we don't cover.
And there's there's a lot of good stuff over there, so make sure to go check it out. Especially all of this crazy stuff, the secret Russian mission to shield Putin from dwarf insults. Just nuts. And thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for everybody that has stuck with us through thick and thin. Thank you for everybody that's sent love or prayers for everybody in the Foogle fam. We appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you, Stephen McMahon, for multiple supports tonight. Thank you, Ilea. Thank you, B-Real Beast. Thank you, Joe Voigt. Joe Vogt says Marfoogle community is amazing. It is. It is what draws people in is you guys. Carafuse for some cans of corn. Well, thank you, Carafuse. And then, I don't know, I'll have to pry him out of China's hands. Bible Talk 777, prayers to all who need it and those who don't. Thank you, Bible Talk. Praying for you too. Thank you so much for sticking around for years now. Thank you, everybody that has stuck around for years. I appreciate all of you. Thank you, B-Real Beast, Ilea, Olga, Felix, and S. Snort. Nice to see you again. Thank you, all of you guys, for supporting, and thank you. It's a rough time right now. All of this is available over at marfooglenews.com. It is now time for the shoutro. Thank you, Dex. I appreciate your service.
Much love. Great job, brother.
It's not a shoutro. It's not an... No, wait. Dang it. I just messed it up. It's not an outro. Wait. It's not an outro. It's not a shout-out. It's a shoutro. If I push this button, it will be... Where I say thank you to the people that matter most, you. Thank you, guys. Much love. Be safe. Be prepared, and Marf out. Gonna bring it on down, bring it on down. Hey, the mafia gonna bring it on down, bring it on down. Hey, the mafia gonna bring it on down, bring it on down. Hey, the mafia gonna bring it on down, bring it on down. Hey, the mafia gonna bring it on down, bring it on down. Hey, the mafia gonna bring it on down, bring it on down. Thank you, Marfoogle family. Got 5 more open now. Oh, my friend, oh, now. I see hard thinking in the Josh family garden. Belinda Gokes and the Mandy Man. With the Randy Man and the Rob Mills and Shastina Band. Dale Calhoun, bring it down back, you've been here soon. I'm all gardener seeking truth. I 0 times in. Let's make a fresh one. right, tell me what